Hi, let's learn how to play chess. First of all, you'll need a board and you need to make sure the board's the right way around. You're going to want a black square on your left and a white square on your right, regardless of which side you're on. I've got a black square on my left and a white square on my right. So then we start putting the pieces on, starting with the queen, who's the one with this kind of very wide crown that kind of fans out like that. She goes on her own colour square, so white queen on white square and black queen on black square, so they face off against each other. Then we've got the king, who's a little bit taller, has more of a kind of plus shape sometimes, kind of a crown that doesn't fan out quite as much. And generally from this point onwards, the closer to the middle of the border piece is, the taller it is. Almost but not quite in order of importance. So then we've got the bishops with their slitted mitre, I believe it's called. And they go next to the king and queen. And I'll put my bishops on as well. And after that, we've got the ill-named knights who they must have fallen off their horse, but we've got the horses, everyone's favourite surely, and I'm sure the knights themselves will be along before the end of the game. So here are the knights, and last of all we have the rook. Now, I believe this comes from the Persian for chariot. Chess originated, I believe, in India, made its way through Persia to Eastern Europe and Western Europe. When it got to Europe, we changed the chariot into castles, but we still call them rooks, even though they're not anymore. Although, to be honest, I think chariots make more sense because, you know, they move, which traditionally castles don't. You know, being European, I have been to a few castles I was dragged around as a child, and not a single one of them moved, I have to tell you. Very stationary, it's their main quality. Okay, and then the last ones are the pawns. Anyone who's seen The Wire will know the pawn is a foot soldier who, at least at the beginning, goes in front of everyone else so that everyone can cower behind them, and they do all the dirty work while being completely expendable. Now, I'm not going to comment on the politics of this. This is, of course, an apolitical battle simulation, so nothing political there at all. So, now we're ready for a nice game of chess. Okay, clearing the board again so you can actually see what's going on, nothing obstructing the view. Let's look at all 6 pieces and how they move. First of all, the king, who is the most important, valuable piece, but by themselves they're pretty useless. Now, he can move in any direction he wants, but only one square at a time. So, it's not great, I'll be honest. It's really more about protecting the king, not about the king themselves achieving much. You know, they've got other people to do that for them. So, they can move like that, or like that, or like that. But, you know, very excruciatingly slowly. Towards the end of the game, there's less pieces on the boards, less, you know, attacking going on. Yeah, they might get a bit more useful then, but the first 2/3 of the game, you've got to protect them. They can't really do much by themselves. Then you've got his wife, the queen. She's the opposite. She was turbocharged some centuries ago and now is zipping all over the place. She can also move in any direction, but as many squares as she likes, so all over the place. Backwards and then forwards, forwards and then backwards. She loves to muscle in. So as long as there's no one in her way, she can go all the way to the edge of the board and everything. Very kind of useful piece. As a result of this, a lot of people kind of despair if someone captures their queen, like they can't possibly win without her. That's not true. You still have a fighting chance. First of all, when someone takes your queen, they might get a little bit kind of relieved or arrogant for a while. It might be easier to take theirs afterwards. You never know. That's happened to me quite a few times. Also, you may get a queen again for reasons we'll go into later. Also, chess is about checkmating someone, whether you can checkmate your opponent or not. That's a Boolean, it's a binary. Doesn't matter if, like, you have more pieces, known as more material, if they're worth more value. It doesn't matter. Winning is everything. It doesn't matter how you got there. So you can have, like, you know, a king and a rook and nothing else, and your opponent's got all of the pieces, and you still could win. It'd be very difficult, but you can do it. So, you know, don't give up. It's always good to practice especially working within constraints and limitations in any discipline. And so, yeah, trying to checkmate someone when, like, you're kind of the underdog, definitely worth practicing, and it can be done. It's very satisfying to do it that way, I think. Right, so the next two pieces are basically a subset of the queen. The bishop can do diagonals only, just like the queen can, but only the diagonals. Far as he likes, but diagonals only. And opposite of that, you've got the rook, who goes forwards, backwards, left, right, far as he likes, but only your vertical and horizontal, none of your diagonals there. So if the two of these ever got together and had a baby, surely she'd be a queen. Right. Then you've got your knight, who's a bit of a wild card. This is always the hardest to explain and remember. In effect, they go 2 squares in one direction, turn 90 degrees, go 1 square in another direction. Or they go 1 square, turn 90 degrees, go 2. Doesn't really matter which way you think about it, it's the same place you end up. I mean, yeah, you can even think about it like, forwards diagonal, diagonal forwards, it's the same thing. Now, basically it makes an L shape, so like capital letter L, and that means they can go to any of these squares. From this one, they can go here, they could go here, there, or there. It's always 8 different squares they can go to. They can jump over pieces. Let's say we've got a friendly rook here. They can go here. They've kind of jumped over the rook to get there. No one else can jump over pieces. It's just the knight, because they're on a horse and they can gallop. So they're kind of going over this piece. So the knight's really the only one who can kind of attack through enemy lines, say, and get a piece hiding behind other pieces. So they're really quite good for that. It may kind of help a bit to compare the knight to the queen. From here, this square, the queen can go, say, here or here. The queen can't go here because it's not a straight line. Horsey can go here. So this also means, as a result, that the knight is the only piece who can sneak up on the queen. I mean, anyone can kind of threaten the queen, like, okay, I can threaten the queen like that, but the queen's going to get me first. Whereas with the knight, queen can see me coming, not do anything. She can run away, she can send other pieces after me, but the knight here, she can't attack the knight directly. The knight is the only one who can sneak up on the queen, so kind of useful for that. Then you've got your foot soldiers, the pawn. They're fairly complicated. Usually very basic. They move forwards, further and further into enemy territory, 1 square at a time. Like the king, only worse. But because a long time ago, people decided chess was far too long and boring and slow and drawn out. They decided what we'll do is we'll let the pawns move 2 pieces, 2 squares at a time, just the very first move. So we'll go back for that one. Okay, so say your pawn, you're halfway through a game, there's lots of stuff happening, but this is the first time you've moved this particular pawn. You have the option of moving them 2 squares forwards instead of 1. Up to you. There's more to that which we'll come to later. Now, as far as attacking goes, they can only do it diagonally. So say you've got an enemy piece here. Let's see. Actually, yeah, let me show it from your point of view. Sorry. Right. So from your point of view, pawn starts off here, and you're moving them forwards towards me, your opponent, like that, 1 square at a time. And the first move could be 2 squares. So from your point of view, forwards to me like that. Right, so I've got my enemy piece here. You can attack them diagonally like that. They can only attack diagonally though. So if I've got my enemy piece here, you can't attack them like that because you can only attack diagonally. And you can't move around them because you can only non-attack, move the normal way without attacking anyone. You can only do that forwards. So you can't really do anything right now with your pawn. But if my pawn's there, you've got the option of going, far along straight past it or attacking it. So yeah, you can move forwards and you can attack diagonally, and that's how the pawns work. Okay, so in addition to how the pieces normally move, there's 3 kind of slightly more complex rules. First one concerns the pawn here. Now remember when I said that you can move your pawn for their first move, for any of your pawns you can move them 2 squares instead of 1 if you want to. I can still capture your pawn as if they only moved 1 square. That's called en passant, probably mispronouncing it, French for in passing. So you can move 1 square, I can capture it. You can move 2 squares, I can capture it as if you moved 1 square. I can still also capture it, bearing in mind you moved 2. So it's kind of like a way to make it fair, so that even though you can speed up the first move, we can still attack as if you couldn't. For some bizarre reason I'm not aware of, you can only attack a pawn en passant with another pawn. So as your opponent, I would need to be on my 5th row, which is your 4th row. So when you go from there to there, because that's the only line you can hop over in effect. When you move 2 squares at once, I can get you there. So I need to be on this row to do it in the first place. That's en passant. It's a weird, quirky thing. Another weird, quirky thing that speeds up the game is castling. Even though they're called rooks, this manoeuvre is called castling. So queen on your own colour, king on opposite colour. You got your rooks in the corner here. Right, so if you've not got anything on either of these 2 squares at any given time, and your rook hasn't moved yet, and your king hasn't moved yet, and they're not in check, and they wouldn't be in check anywhere along the way, you can move your rook all the way over to the king and have the king hop over the rook like that. And you can do this either side. You can do it the queen side if you like. So if you haven't moved your king, haven't moved this rook, nothing in between them, and your king's not in check now, nor will they be on any square in between, the rook can go right up to the king, who hops over. And that's called castling, even though we call the castles rooks. Right, and the last thing is promotion. So the poor hard done by pawns, representing the common worker of today, they're the ones who have to do all the work, and they're seen as completely disposable, expendable, and if they get all the way to the end, even if they're attacking when they get all the way to the end, there's a promotion in it for them. Woo. They can turn into any other piece, and indeed must turn into any other piece. Not king, but they can turn into rare circumstances. You might want to turn them into a knight, so they can do some kind of elaborate checkmate there or there. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to turn them into a queen. So, say you move all the way into there, as part of your move of going there, same move, they're turning into a queen. Or say you're attacking one of my pieces, you attack it, same move, turn into a queen, or whatever else you like. There's no reason to turn them into a bishop or a rook, because the queen can do everything both of those can do. So, oh yeah, and there used to be, some people playing it in a way that I thought was quite sensible, where you can only turn into a piece that you used to have that has been captured. But that rule doesn't apply anymore. You can turn into, a piece that hasn't been captured. So that means, theoretically, you can have up to 9 queens. Your original 1 queen, plus your 8 pawns. Hypothetically, if you've got them all the way over, all 8 of them, you could have 9 queens. I've never heard of that happening. I played 1 game where I had 3 queens at the end. I know Bobby Fischer played a game once where both him and his opponent had 2 queens for a while. And this is why most modern chess sets come with 2 queens per side. So 2 pairs, 2, 2, 4. That's why that is. Technically, you can have unlimited, 9 queens. So you get more than 2. You're going to need like bits of paper, and you just write on it queen. Anyway, that's the 3 kind of more complex rules, the kind of exceptions to everything. With the exception of those 3 things, it's mostly just remembering how the pieces move for beginning playing chess. Let's see. Next, we can talk about attacking and capturing, how you get your enemy's pieces and eventually win the game. Okay, so remember how the rook can go all the way over there? Yep, great. So, say you've got a friendly bishop over here. Now they can't. They can only go as far as right up next to the bishop. You can't occupy the same square as one of your friendly pieces. However, say there's an enemy piece on the square, you can totally go on the same square as that take the enemy off the board, you've basically slaughtered them in battle, and they're now off the board. I can't use that piece anymore. That's known as capturing my bishop with your rook, and that gives you a little bit of an advantage because now you've got more pieces than me. It makes it a little bit easier to checkmate me. It doesn't guarantee it, but it makes it easier. So what can we do to stop people from taking your pieces? Let's find out. First of all, I can protect my piece. Say I've got a bishop there and a pawn there. Well, now you can take my bishop, but you're less likely to because then I'll take your rook, and probably that's not the best trade-off. So even though you can still take my bishop, you'll be less likely to. I've kind of soured the deal a bit. Another thing I can do, for instance, is interpose, which is a fancy way of saying blocking. Actually, this is a bad example because this is a piece you're even more likely to want to take. Say I've got a little horse here. Right, so I could interpose like this, and so, okay, you can't take my bishop now, you'd have to take my knight instead. Now, he probably would want to take my knight still, so it's not the best example, but if you've got a really valuable piece, like say a queen, for instance, yeah, you're going to want to put a knight in between so that they can't take your queen, they can only take your knight, which is nowhere near as valuable. So you can interpose, basically block or shield with a less valuable piece. So let's see, we can protect, so we can make our piece somewhat safe, which you should always be doing anyway. Always protect your pieces, even if they're not under attack yet. And we can interpose to block. We can, let's see, well, if I can capture your piece first and foremost, then I'm going to do that. So you want to make sure that you're protected, so I'm not going to want to do that. So if you're able to take one of my pieces and I'm able to take one of yours, naturally I'm going to stop you from trying to do that. So it's a little bit fanciful to think that you might be able to capture my piece and I won't notice my opportunity to capture yours first. So always make sure that you're not under attack before trying to attack me. Let's see, the other option is the famous Monty Python one. Run away like a coward. Like, okay, so if I'm not in that square anymore, okay, you can go there, but there's nothing there to get. So your main options here, you can protect yourself, you can protect your piece to make it kind of less tempting to take, or you can interpose by having another piece in between. You can capture their piece instead, which is always the first best option if you can do it, and you can run away. So yeah, always protect your pieces. If someone attacks you, see if you can capture their piece first, because it's usually advantageous, unless they're protected, and then you've got to work out who's worth the most and everything. If you can't, then you can either interpose with another piece, or you can run away. Those are generally your main options when being attacked. Now, if it's your king being attacked, it doesn't matter if they're protected, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, okay, so if you take my king, I can take your rook. So what? I've already lost the game. You've taken my king. King's everything in chess. That's called check. And if you're playing against a fellow novice, it's customary to call out check, So you move your piece here. Check. You're now placing me in check because you can capture me the next move. Now, because my king's in check here, I have to get out of check. I can't just ignore it because then you'd capture the king and win the game. So protecting your king doesn't really mean anything. All I can do at this point is I can try and capture your piece first, ideally, or I can interpose, get something else in the way, or my king can run away like a coward. Those are the three options. There's nothing else really I can do. Now, the real kicker here is, say for instance, that my king's here, and I can't go any further than where this rook can go. I can't go here, be putting myself in check. That's not allowed. King can never put themselves in check because they would lose the game the next turn. So I can't go anywhere outside of these two rows. So and then you put, say, this rook here. Now I have to go here, and I can only go on this one row. And if you put the other rook here now, that's it. Game over. You've won. Because I am in check. This piece is attacking my king right now. I am in check right now. And I can't move anywhere else without putting myself in another check. And if there's nowhere my king can go that they're not in check, that's called checkmate, which again I believe is Persian, shamat, I'm probably mispronouncing, meaning the king is helpless. Anyway, checkmate means I'm in check right now. Also, there's nowhere my king can go without also still being in check. So it's guaranteed that your next move, you're going to take my king. That means you've won the game. We never really kind of play it out into actually capturing the king, which seems kind of a shame to me. But just knowing that you can get the game, just knowing that you can capture the king the next move means you have won the game. That is a checkmate. Now, what you need to be careful of is you don't do something like this. And even if, say, I've got another piece but I can't move it, right, if it's my turn, there's no valid move I can make now. I can't go here because this rook could put me in check. Can't go here because this rook could put me in check. Can't move my pawn. There's no valid move I can make. This is known as a stalemate. I know in general parlance, stalemate is like a Mexican standoff where neither side can do anything. In chess, it's actually not that. It just means that one of us can't do anything. There's no valid legal move that I can make right now. So I kind of have to forfeit my turn, as it were, which means it's a draw. Now, this is a kind of something I have to be really careful about with chess. If you do this, that's a checkmate. But if you do this, it's a draw. You've got to be very careful not to draw. A lot of the time you can get close to a checkmate, you accidentally do a stalemate instead, and you kind of, you clutch defeat from the claws of victory. It's like you're so close to winning and then at the last minute don't. So, make sure you don't give your opponent any accidental half victories that way. But yeah, that's basically chess right there. If you can move somewhere where your opponent's piece is, you're attacking it. If you do move where your opponent's piece is, then you're capturing it. If you're attacking your opponent's king, that's a check and they have to move out of the way. If you're attacking where the king is and everywhere it can go and they can't capture your attacking piece, that's checkmate and you have won the game. And if your opponent can't make any valid moves, that's stalemate and a draw. So that basically is all you need to know to play chess. It's not what you need to know to play chess well, but really there's a lot of information to take in and it's worth practicing a whole bunch of games. I think that just leaves where to play chess. I mean, there are, certain parks you can play it where it's a known thing. If your friends are into chess, you can play it with your friends. If they're not, you can try having a game or two with them, but, don't pressure them into your latest interest, as tempting as that is. There's local chess clubs, most places I believe, so that's always an option. Personally, I tend to play online on a French server. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Lichess or Lichess, which is fantastic. There's like millions of people there playing chess, and because the games are ranked, it doesn't really matter how good or bad you are. It will always pair you up with someone at about your skill level, so you're going to win and lose roughly half the time. So as soon as you get better, it finds people who again are slightly better, and again you'll win or lose roughly half the time. So it's not too frustrating either way. So I think that's quite neat. I know as a game it's a little bit aggressive, it's a bit gung-ho, a bit jingoism. I try and ignore that. I mean, it's a bit militaristic even, but everyone dying to serve their king aside, I think it's just, a fun way to kind of relax and unwind. And if someone checkmates you in like a new novel way, I won't be upset about that. I think it's just, oh, okay, you've taught me a new way to do that. That's neat. That's interesting. So, I think it's a nice fun game. I recommend it, especially if, like me, you've got a busy mind. It helps divert you from what's happening in the world into something less important that you can concentrate on and, not be worrying about so much all the time. But hey, that's my issues. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe you learned something. Thank you especially to my sponsors for helping support me spending time doing this kind of thing. I'd very much appreciate it if you consider joining my sponsors. If not, no worries, mate, it's fine. That's basically it. So thank you for watching. Till next time, bye.